Guys, I've got some beautiful smoked pork sliders right here. Look at this. That's the real thing. We're going to be teaching you how to do smoking on an offset smoker today and how to make the best tasting pork you're ever going to put in your mouth. Well, howdy folks. Welcome to Texas Cooking Today. I'm Chef Trotters, your host. Today we're going to be preparing some wonderful, delicious food. And what you're watching here, this is one of my tutorials. So if you're looking for all of the answers and all of the details about this recipe, you found the right video. If you just need the recipe, watch the previous episode. That's what that is. And thank you very much for watching. Now, let's get into this. Now guys, you saw it right there. This is beautiful pulled pork. It's a smoked pork butt, guys. Some people call this a picnic roast. So you'll know what it is. It's just the front shoulder of a pig, all right? It's just that simple. What we're going to do is take these wonderful roasts, we're going to open them up, put them out on the smoker, and we're going to smoke them all day long. I'm going to be using mesquite. It's a very Texas flavor. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to get out here. I'm going to show you the ins and outs of really how to use an offset smoker. This particular recipe, this video is a lot less about the meat that we're using and a whole lot more about the process of smoking meats. And that's what I want to show you because this is so delicious, guys. And once you've learned it, once you've learned the right temperatures, the right way to gauge your smoke, the right way to control your fire, you're going to be hooked on making barbecue because it's not hard. It's just a matter of getting the right circumstances set up, and then you put your meat out in that smoke and let it go. So without any further wasting time, let's get in the kitchen. Let's take a look at our ingredients and we'll get busy doing some smoking on an offset smoker. Come on, let's go. Oh guys, look at this. Fantastic ingredients. Look, today, honestly, is more about process than ingredients, okay? What I want to teach you is the process of slow smoking meat. And this time I have chosen to use a pork shoulder. You can apply this very lesson to any cut of meat you want. A brisket, a rump roast, chicken, whatever, okay? This lesson sort of applies across the board. This is about smoking in an offset smoker, guys, and it gives fantastic flavors. You know, you hear people talk about Texas barbecue, and this is it right here. This is where we break out the smoker and we spend the day just kind of kicking back and enjoying life and going out and occasionally tending the fire, making sure the smoke that comes up is wispy and blue and not too thick or heavy or gray. So you get to get the right color in your smoke, the right temperature in the smoke chamber, and some delicious meat up in there. And it doesn't matter what cut, like I said before. Now today, I need to mention though, there is a little bit of blending of ingredients here. For instance, I'm using pork, and generally when I'm smoking, I like to use a mop, and that helps to keep the meat moist, and it also provides a seasoning sometimes if you decide to do it that way. And that's the way I'm doing this one. So our mop is actually going to be lard, guys. Believe it or not, we're going to melt down some lard, and it's perfect for pork. After all, that's what's in the pork right now is lard. And so we're just going to be adding more to it to make sure the meat doesn't lose its moisture. I have a little bit of vinegar here and some salt and paprika and garlic. The vinegar will cut any rind that builds, allow the smoke to penetrate better, and at the same time your spices, of course, just adding a wonderful extra flavor in addition to that wonderful smoky taste. Today I'm using mesquite, and this is all about smoking in your offset smoker. Guys, let's get these ingredients together. Let's go outside. Let's get busy starting our fire. We're going to use a chimney starter. I recommend this. Don't use petroleum products to start your fire, guys. I will be using charcoal as my primary source for heat, and some wood chunks that have been soaking in hot water for a few hours. I soak them because I don't want them to erupt into flames and to burn off real quick. I want them to slowly smolder, turn into charred coals, and just keep releasing smoke. And this is the best way to get that, okay? Oh, let's get on with it. Okay guys, I'm out here with my old beat up offset smoker. I have my starter chimney right there to start up my fire with, but I wanted to go over what an offset smoker is first and how it works. Down here on the side of your offset smoker, you have what's called a firebox. This is where you put the fire, guys, in the firebox. Okay, on the side you have a door with a damper in it that allows air through there, all right? And this helps you to clean it out when you need to. We're going to be keeping this closed except for that damper so we get good airflow through there for the fire, and then it will release its smoke through that little hatch on the side into the smoke chamber. Now your smoke chamber, right up in here, that's where all of the action happens. You have some grates there. You're going to be putting your meat on those grates, and after that we're going to sit and smoke it for hours. It just does its own thing once it's in there. But in the bottom of that smoke chamber, you need a big pan, and you want it filled with hot water, and that fire will help to keep it even warmer, and it will release moisture into your smoke chamber, thereby keeping the meat a little more supple, and it produces just a better quality smoke. So guys, I'm going to light that chimney real quick. These things are filled up with newspaper on bottom is what you use, and just put your charcoal up in there. A large one like this is about 5 pounds of charcoal. So don't underestimate what these things can do and how well they do it. Just light that paper, set it on the grate so you get good airflow up through there. It is important. Now this thing is going to smolder and smoke for a little bit, but as that paper lights up, it will light the charcoal. The charcoal will quickly light from the bottom on up, and when it ashes on top, we're ready to start cooking. This usually takes about 20 minutes, guys, and the beautiful thing is you get a clean flavor without that nasty kerosene flavor that a starter fluid will give you. And if you say you don't taste that, well, a lot of people have been conditioned through the use of it so much over the years they don't even notice it, but when they do without it, wow, I'll tell you what, you can sure taste the difference. Let's give this some time and we'll be making barbecue. Now guys, today of course we're working with these pork shoulders, and I wanted to show you this. I want to fold it open. They come often netted up, but when you take that net off, you'll find something like this, all right? This is perfect. I'm going to leave this fat in here because it will gently render through that meat, and it's wonderful. It's not too thick either to prevent smoke penetration, so we're still going to get some smoke through the fat. Our meat has been splayed open more when we remove that net, and thus I can get more surface area for the smoke to penetrate, and that's exactly what I'm going to go for here. On this, guys, when we are doing our mop, we just want to cover the meat real well with our mop, and that way it's preserved, okay? And the whole idea there is just to keep moisture in. I'm going to open this one up to just kind of show you. These things are easy to remove, so just go ahead and take it off, get it out of your way. See how that opened right up? And that's that cut around that bone again. If you want, you'll notice these are kind of in two barely attached halves. You can go ahead and just take those apart, guys. Just like that. We have the same thing going on right here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to half them right down the middle. Now I have pieces a lot easier to handle when I'm down on my smoker. And by the way, whenever you have a nice fat back like that, start your smoking with that fat side up, okay? You don't have to have all of that fat. You can reduce it, because folks, I'm going to tell you now, only a certain percentage of this fat will actually render down through the meat. The rest of it is simply in the way as fat, unless of course you just enjoy eating fat. And in that case, I'd say, hey, leave it on there, right? But for those of us that don't really need that extra, you can thin it down a little. Like I say, I don't recommend taking all of it, just thin it. Now I'm going to get better smoke penetration to the meat, wonderful penetration of the fat through the meat because there's still enough, and it's a win-win situation, guys. This is win-win right here. So part of good Texas barbecue is maintaining your fat back, and especially if you're doing a brisket, you cut all that fat off and you've just committed a mortal sin in this state. So I'll tell you what, as soon as our fire is hot enough, Our meat is ready to go on there. This requires no pre-seasoning, guys. You don't have to salt it. You can, but you don't have to, because remember, our mop is going to have salt in that. And the cooking time is incredibly long, so it's not an issue, all right? Guys, our charcoal has ashed over on top. This only took about 20 minutes to get it to this stage, and right now it is an inferno in there. Make sure when you do this, wear gloves, okay? Otherwise you're gonna get burned. These things get really, really hot. There it is. Our fire is up and running, guys. Now, let's take a look down in there so we can get an idea of what's happening. Yeah, it's a busy day here in Dallas, and we're getting our fire set up. I'm gonna leave my damper open a couple of inches as I close this lid. The whole idea here, guys, I want to get a lot of heat over here in my firebox. Now, I'm just gonna wipe off any extra ash. I want to use my hot water here. See, that thing had transferred so much heat that that water just sizzled right up in that pan. So there's a lot of heat down in there. But I need to trap that heat in my smoke box, get this thing as hot as I can. And once I get that heat stabilized, brought up and then stabilized back down at 225, we will then put our meat in there. Now guys, look at this smoke. It has a nice color. It's blue, okay? It's not grayish, it's blue. And that's exactly what we're looking for. However, it is a bit on the thick side, and if we look at our temperature, then we will notice right down here, it's a bit on the high side. I don't ever want my temperature over 250 degrees on my smoke box. And there's a good reason for it, guys. That meat, if it hits too high of a temperature on the outside, it's not going to take in smoke. In other words, the nitrates and the flavor of the smoke the same way it would had this temperature been kept low. So I want to keep that down closer to the 200 degree mark. Between 200 and 225 is smack on the dot perfect. And that's where you get that really good flavor barbecue. Okay, now even though that dial says barbecue on the right above 250 degrees, that's sort of erroneous. Okay, that's not quite correct. When it comes to good smoking, which is what barbecue is, smoked meat, then you got to keep the temperature low and slow, guys. That's the rule, low and slow. So I'm going to close my damper so I can bring that temperature down just a little more. And once I get it down below 225, I can then consider putting my meat out here, but not until. Okay, so let's go ahead to reduce that temperature. I want to bring that damper door in, latch it, and just use the air inlet right there. And I've got that full open at the moment. If that gives me a good temperature and a good constant flow of smoke, that's what I'm going to go with, and that's when we're going to start putting our wood on top of the fire and get the meat out here also. Now, it took me a little bit of time to get this thing down to temperature, but I finally got it at 225. I had to choke down even further. Now guys, if you notice, we don't have a lot of smoke. Not a problem, because that's what we're going to build next. First, we had to get the right temperature. Let's look down here in our smoke box and what we're about to do. Let me go ahead and open this up. Now, during the first hour of getting this really going, I'm going to check it about every 15 minutes. I'll start by adding just a little bit of charcoal. It doesn't take a lot, maybe 6 to 10 briquettes, or lumps, whatever you want to call it. Now from there, guys, let's go ahead and get some of that soaked wood right around the perimeter. Now what I like to do on this is to keep it up high and up on that metal. What that does for me is it slows down the speed at which that starts to smoke off. Basically, we get more controlled smoking. And I'm going to put several large pieces of this around the edges, and in a little bit that'll be my primary smoke producer, and it'll do a beautiful job. From here, I'm going to open up that damper just slightly, just enough so that we get good airflow to make sure that it runs good. But I have to watch my temperature. Don't let it get over 225. Right now, this is at 200 on my smoke chamber. Now guys, once I get my meat out on the smoke, I go ahead and let it just start the smoke permeating it and start to warm up the outside just a little bit first. And that's the same time I go ahead and make my mop. It seems to time out well this way. Go ahead and remove that papery husk from your garlic. Now what you saw me do there, I've been doing that for years. All you have to do is just give those a firm grasp, twist them gently, not too hard. You don't want to twist it hard enough to break the meat underneath, but it just breaks that paper right loose. So it's quick, easy, trouble-free. It's a cool way to open up your garlic. Once you get used to that, you'll never want to go back to anything else. Okay guys, now I have that heating up. Let's go ahead and get that vinegar in here. My salt. There we go. These cloves of garlic, and all I have to do here, I'm just going to bust them open. A little crush on each one, and that's all it's going to take. There we go. And then our paprika. Now what I've done here is I have doubled the recipe that I am listing for this. So I've doubled my lard, the salt, vinegar, paprika amounts. So if it looks like more than yours and you've made the recipe itself, that's the reason why. All right, I'll be bringing this to a boil. As I mentioned, I'm just going to let that cook off for about 10 minutes total. And after that, we have our mop ready to go. Beautiful. Look at that gorgeous red mop. Guys, the smell of vinegar is really strong in the air right now. So kind of watch out in your kitchen because it can really mess with your nose. But go ahead and boil this off. It's only going to take a total of maybe 10 minutes at the most. It doesn't have to be a high rolling boil or anything, just a nice, smooth, low boil. There we go. Those ingredients are combining. It's beautiful. It's red in color from the paprika. And guys, the flavor is so good on this. Between the lard, paprika, oh man, and that garlic. We're talking a winner. Guys, we have our mop made. Let's go ahead and do our meat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this meat over once. Let me give you a little explanation of what's going to be happening on your meat. As we're cooking, we're going to get a red band on the outside of this meat. Now that red band is actually the chemicals in the smoke, specifically nitrates and nitrites, and those are going to be having a serious effect on the meat itself. What it does is it acts as a preservative to the myoglobin, and myoglobin, guys, is the protein in meat that makes it look red. We get that myoglobin in contact with the nitrates, nitrites that are being released in the smoke due to the fact that there's oil in that wood that's referred to as tannins. When those tannins burn, they create these chemicals, and these chemicals act as a preservative, and we get that beautiful red band. That's just all there is to it. We have the meat well coated. I may do this once again about 2 to 3 hours into cooking, but what happens is that lard just coats that really super well, and it acts like a barrier. It's a vapor barrier that prevents the moisture from escaping and kind of locks everything in. You know, oil and moisture don't, or water don't mix, and so what it does is it kind of locks it beneath that surface. It works well. Now let's give this time to smoke. We're going to have us some barbecue. Guys, these little gems are in off of our smoker. Now I've got some of the meat that's under refrigeration, but I wanted to have these in front of you so you could see them nice and clear. These have had a chance to cool down so they can be handled. Now let's go ahead and slice one of these bad boys open. And I want to show you exactly what we were talking about earlier, which is that red band, okay? Look closely. You see that beautiful red band running around that meat? And that's that reaction between the nitrates, nitrites, and the myoglobin in the meat. And it is also your very first sign of real barbecue. If you don't see the red band, guess what? It's not real barbecue. Guys, this is how you can tell. And this is the real thing. Once you've tried this, once you've tried smoking just once, you're going to be hooked. And you don't have to use an offset smoker. You can use an electric smoker. There's a lot of ways of doing this. So take a close look at what you have available to you and give it a try. You're really going to like it. Now, I want to get busy making some sandwiches with this. We're going to be doing us some little pork sliders. Now guys, let me give you all of the measurements that we used on this and just kind of show you how I did things. Come a little closer, let's take a close look at what we have here. So what I started with was a couple of pork shoulders here. These are about 4 pounds each, so they're not just huge, but they're not small either. And these are both boneless. Now you'll notice this one's wrapped up in a net, and a lot of times these things, once they've been through processing, they'll net them like this because it generally kind of opens up into a large folded out piece of meat where they cut it around to the bone. And this is a wonderful cut. So don't worry about that net, just remove it, allow the meat to open up a little better, and you'll get faster smoking that way. You'll also get a more complete smoke, more smoke in the meat because there's more surface area to get it in through. Our mop, as far as ingredients here, the proportions is what I wanted to give you instead of exact measurements. You're going to want to use about 1 part vinegar to 4 parts fat. In this case I used lard, and the lard here I'm going to be using on average about 1/2 cup of lard, and that means I'm going to be using about 1/8 of a cup of my vinegar with that, and I just boil them together with my spices. And in this case it's about 1 teaspoon of salt, and on the paprika about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons, and anywhere from 2 to 4 of these cloves of garlic. I simply crush those as you've seen and let them just kind of boil up in that lard, because once this releases its oil and once this releases its oil into the lard, that's it. It's taken in that flavor. That's what we did there. Of course, I've used plenty of mesquite wood, and don't forget, use that chimney starter. It's a great way to go when it comes to getting your fire up and running. Guys, it's been all day smoking. It was a total of 7.5 hours in the smoker, and then I dropped it in the oven at 350 for an extra 1.5 hours just to make it a little more buttery soft. So what I have here, we now get to go and enjoy these wonderful sliders. And what I did is I chose a French brioche roll. It's got a sweet side to it. It's nice and tasty. It's a bit oily, but they're really good tasting. And you combine it with the smoky, savory flavor of that meat. It is so good, guys. So definitely what you want to do is give this recipe a try, give this method of cooking a try, and you're going to be on to a world of absolute delicious. Guys, this intense smoky flavor. If you've never smoked with mesquite, guys, it's a Texas flavor, okay? Very common here. Give it a shot. It's so robust, so unique. Once you've had it, and in fact, a lot of people find they want it again. It's really good. Well, I'm going to be enjoying these. I'm going to have a good lunch today, as well as some of my friends. We're going to be having a good time. Thank you very much for watching the show, guys, for watching Texas Cooking Today. I appreciate you checking out one of my tutorials. If it was a bit too long for you, if you don't need all that detail, remember the previous episode on any of my recipes is just a short recipe version. Okay, so check those out as well. Thank you again for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. Click the like button. That does help me out a lot. And if you have any suggestions, if you have a request, comment, questions, put them right down here. Believe it or not, I read those, and if you'll look, I answered most of them. So thank you very much for watching, and folks, if you would, again, just have a good day. Bye-bye. Well, there it is, guys. Texas Cooking Today tutorial. Thank you very much for watching this show and for watching Texas Cooking Today. If you would, please go to my channel. Check out what I have there. There's some wonderful recipes and some great tutorials waiting for you to try. Again, thank you very much.